Hello and welcome to Artist Express. Our guest today is Barbara Mulvihill, who works at the Salina Public Library and has lived here in Salina for 17 years. Barbara is a writer. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to the writing profession and how it all developed, Barbara?
Yes, well, I'm a latecomer to writing. About 5 years ago, I took a writing class from Lori Brock through the Salina Public Library, and it was a 4-week essay writing class. And so that really was what got me started. I wrote a short story or a short essay that Lori really liked a lot, and she thought I had talent. And since I had done about 30 years of genealogy research prior to that, and had a really interesting family that I was interested in writing about, I decided to write a family memoir at that point, which was a big leap from not writing at all to writing a book. But I decided to take it, and so it's been a really fun journey so far, and I've got a ways to go.
So the book is not yet complete?
No,
All right.
not yet.
But you have had some little side trips along the way, I understand?
Yes.
You have some publications with you, I noticed.
Yes.
Can you tell us about those?
I sure can. This is the Heritage Journal of the Texas United Methodist Historical Society. It's a yearly publication, and in doing my research, I had contacted the archivist of the Texas United Methodist Historical Society and asked him if he could give me any information on my great-great-grandfather, who was a circuit riding preacher in rural East Texas right after the Civil War. And he told me that he didn't have any information on him. He couldn't really point me in any direction. However, he was extremely interested in my great-great-grandfather because they had no knowledge that there were any what he called Anglo preachers preaching to the freedmen of in rural East Texas after the war. So he asked me to write this article, and so it took me a while to get it together, but it was published in April, and so I was very excited.
So now this publication has your essay and others as well?
It has my article about my great-great-grandfather, and then, yes, there are some other articles in it as well.
So you've probably had a good time reading the others.
Yes.
It's almost like a little self-critique.
Yes, kind of comparing my work,
Right.
but I was very excited to be included.
I should think you would be. That's
Yes.
wonderful. And then the other book you have?
The other one was published just this month. Also, when doing my research on this family in Civil War era East Texas, I contacted a professor at Texas A&M University, a history professor who specializes in women's studies, and I contacted her because I had seen her doctoral dissertation on the internet, and she had mentioned my great-great-grandmother, and so I thought she might have information on my grandmother. So I asked her about that, and she didn't have any additional information on my grandmother, but she was extremely interested to find out what I knew about my grandmother, and asked me to write an article for the Handbook of Texas Women Online, which is put out by the Texas State Historical Association, and she's the editor of that.
I see.
And so that was last year, and I didn't really have time to start on it until earlier this year, and turned it into her in April, and she was extremely excited about it because she said it had a lot of history in it about the women's suffrage movement in early Texas that she didn't know. And actually, it turned out that my great-great-grandmother, from what I'm reading in the introduction to this book, was the earliest women's suffragist in Texas in 1869. And so this year, actually June 28th of this year, was the centennial of Texas's ratification of the 19th Amendment, giving women the vote. And so they decided, the Texas Historical Association decided to publish an e-book commemorating that centennial. And so she put my article about my great-great-grandmother in the e-book.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's available online. Because my article's in there, I had to print it off so that I had a hard copy of it.
Well, and it's very handsome. I like it.
Yes, it's in it. The artwork inside is wonderful. I'll show you just really quickly.
Oh, that looks really nice.
It's beautiful, beautifully done, and and these articles. Well, this article in particular, I had to document every fact.
Yes.
So it's
Martha Goodwin Tunstall was your great-grandmother.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
And had to be vetted by historians and everything, so I'm very proud of that one.
Well, you should be. This is a beautiful publication.
Yes.
Now, if our audience wanted to look at this document online, what would they type in for the search?
Just Texas Women and the Vote.
Okay,
and that'll
Texas
get you
Women
to
and
it.
the Vote.
And then you just have to enter your email address, and they'll email you a copy of the ebook. So, and I do have to mention that when I decided to write my book, I took a trip to Texas in 2016 and to do research, both in East Texas and in Austin at the state historical libraries there. And then I found that I hadn't really gotten everything I needed, and I needed to take trips to other locations where my great-great-grandparents lived also. And so I applied to the Salina Arts and Humanities and received the Lana Jordan Developing Artist Grant last year. And so they helped to fund a second trip to Texas and a trip to Arkansas. And, they also helped me with access to data, the cost of access to databases. And so that was a wonderful thing that Salina did for me.
Well, I wondered how do you even begin a task that monumental? Where, if you're going into a community you've never been in before to do research, where do you go first?
Well, being a librarian, what I did was email ahead to I started out by emailing the library volunteer at Crockett, Texas Public Library, and she turned out to be a wonderful person who helped me to get started in my research in Texas, and then also, when I visited the big research libraries in Austin, they have finding aids and catalogs and so forth online, so you can get on those and find out what they have before you go.
So you're ready
so
with
you're
the
ready,
list.
yes.
Yeah. Now, when you go there and take notes, do you take a laptop with you, or do you take notes by hand?
Actually, what I did was, they don't have photocopy machines in those big archives anymore, and so, but they do allow you to take pictures. So I just took my phone and took pictures of all the documents, and then when I came home, I had, thousands of pictures that I had to go to, and a lot of them are original documents in old handwriting and so forth. And so, of course, I'm still working on transcribing all of those
and just
documents.
Deciphering.
Exactly. The handwriting is so hard to read.
Yes.
Especially my great-great-grandfather's, when he got emotional,
It got pretty spidery.
Yeah, he scrawled.
Well, now, how did it happen that you became so interested in genealogy and your family? Did you grow up hearing stories from relatives, or how did that all begin?
Well, when I was 13, we moved from Topeka to Kansas City and moved into a house a couple of blocks away from my grandparents, my mom's parents. And so every Saturday night, my mom, my sister, and I would go over to my grandma's house. And she was a little bit of a storyteller, and so she would talk about her childhood growing up. She grew up in Blue Jacket, Oklahoma Indian Territory. And so she talked about her family growing up. And then about not too much longer than that, I was given an assignment in 8th grade to do my family tree. So I went to my grandparents and asked them about any information they had on our family tree. So my grandma told me about her parents who lived in Blue Jacket, and about her mom's parents, who are the people I'm writing about now. She didn't know a lot. She knew just a very few facts. So that's what I started off with. And then years later, some of my mom's family had a family reunion. And so we kind of all pooled the facts that we had, and that gave me a little bit more. But still, I didn't know much to start off with. So.
Well, how has that changed the way you think about sharing information with the younger generation in your family now? Because what you say is very true. We know just bits and pieces of our very well-loved relatives, but we just know them from our own viewpoint during the times that we've spent with them. Have you made some effort to, of course you're writing it down for them,
and that's
but about yourself? I bet you haven't written that much about yourself. So how will you approach your memories with younger people in your family?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't have any children myself, but my sister has 2 boys. Right now, they're not interested at all.
I see.
That's
not too surprising.
And no, I mean, that's pretty standard. When you're young, you just don't think about it. And so, then when you lose people is when all the questions occur to you. So I definitely think everyone should write down, something about their lives, their memory of their family, because then, when we're gone, they'll have that.
They'll have something
to remember us
to start with.
Yeah. And I'm planning, I've collected so much information, and I am planning to hopefully leave it to various libraries and archives
Good.
to make it available to
Right.
future generations whenever they're interested
Yes,
in
when
it.
the time comes. And the time does come for
Yes,
most everyone,
yes,
I think. It's
yes.
just not realizing
Right.
it, that that's
It's
gonna
when
be
you're
happening.
older
Yeah.
usually and you lose your parents.
Now, when you got into high school, were you actively writing at that time, or?
I wrote some, but you know, I didn't really receive much feedback from my teachers,
see.
and so I wasn't encouraged, you know, and so I kind of dropped it. I always liked any kind of artistic activity. I loved art, and and I loved reading. So, you know, I've always had that bent,
Yes.
but it wasn't really until Lori Brock encouraged
Right.
me that I was like, I kept saying, really? I really could do it? And she
you.
said, yes.
Well, Barbara, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I want to let everyone in the audience know you can come to the library and
That's
visit
right.
with Barbara.
That's right.
And check those listings for classes. You may want to take one too.
That's right.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.